At 2:17 a.m., there is no warning siren, no visible explosion, no rising plume on the horizon. The failure begins invisibly at the speed of light, moving through the atmosphere and into the infrastructure that modern civilization depends on. In less than a second, high-voltage transmission lines, spanning hundreds of kilometers, begin to experience induced currents far beyond their design limits. Transformers, those massive, silent machines that regulate the flow of electricity, start to saturate, overheat, and fail. Control systems misread conditions. Protective relays trip in chaotic sequences. Entire regions disconnect from the grid, not in a controlled shutdown, but in a cascading collapse. The result is immediate and absolute. A grid-down event that does not flicker, does not struggle, but simply stops. This is the operational reality of a high-altitude electromagnetic pulse, or EMP. It is not theoretical, and it is not misunderstood in scientific circles. The physics are well established, documented through decades of research and high-altitude nuclear testing conducted in the mid-20th century. What is often misunderstood is not the existence of the threat, but the mechanism by which it translates into systemic failure. Most people imagine an EMP as a wave that burns out electronics instantly, like a surge frying a device. That interpretation is incomplete. The true vulnerability lies in scale and coupling. When electromagnetic energy interacts with long conductors, power lines, pipelines, communication cables, it induces currents that are orders of magnitude larger than anything localized shielding can handle. The pulse itself is typically described in three components: E1, E2, and E3. The E1 phase is extremely fast, lasting nanoseconds, capable of damaging microelectronics and integrated circuits. The E2 phase follows, similar to lightning in its characteristics, which most systems are somewhat hardened against. But the most dangerous component for infrastructure is E3, a slow, geomagnetic-like disturbance that can last for seconds to minutes. This phase induces quasi-direct currents in long transmission lines, driving transformers into saturation. Once saturated, transformers overheat internally, insulation breaks down, and permanent damage occurs. These are not components that can be quickly replaced. They are custom-built, often weighing hundreds of tons, with manufacturing lead times measured in months or even years. Evidence of these effects is not hypothetical. During the 1962 high-altitude nuclear test known as Starfish Prime, conducted over the Pacific Ocean, streetlights in Hawaii, over 1,400 kilometers away, failed unexpectedly. Communication systems experienced disruptions. Satellites in orbit were damaged. At the time, the infrastructure was far less complex and far less dependent on sensitive electronics than it is today. Modern grids rely on digital control systems, synchronized timing, and automated balancing mechanisms. This increases efficiency, but it also increases fragility. A disturbance that would have caused limited disruption decades ago now has the potential to trigger widespread, prolonged outages. The survival implication is not just the loss of electricity, it is the loss of everything that electricity enables. Water treatment facilities rely on pumps and control systems to maintain pressure and sanitation. Without power, water distribution halts. Telecommunications infrastructure, cell towers, internet nodes, data centers depends on continuous power and precise timing. Backup generators exist, but they rely on fuel supply chains that are themselves dependent on functioning logistics networks. Refrigeration systems fail, leading to rapid food spoilage. Medical facilities shift to emergency power, but only for as long as fuel reserves last. The modern urban environment, optimized for efficiency, has very little tolerance for sustained interruption. A common misunderstanding is that individual preparedness can rely solely on small-scale solutions: portable generators, battery packs, isolated devices stored in shielding containers. While these measures can protect specific equipment from the immediate effects of an EMP, they do not address the broader systemic collapse. If the grid remains down for weeks or months due to transformer damage, the challenge shifts from device survival to resource sustainability. Water, food, sanitation, and security become primary concerns. The timeline of degradation is not linear. It accelerates as interconnected systems fail in sequence. The hidden science here is the concept of interdependency. Infrastructure systems are not isolated. They are tightly coupled networks where failure in one domain propagates into others. The power grid supports communication systems, which in turn turn coordinate transportation and logistics, which sustain fuel distribution, which powers backup systems for the grid. When the initial shock disrupts the electrical back,